I have started recording. Good evening all. Welcome to the third day program of online short-term course on adaptation of aquatic systems to climate change. With the blessings of our beloved founder Chancellor Colonel Dr. J.P.R. Sir, I am happy to welcome you all. On behalf of the Center for Ocean Research, we sincerely express our deepest thankfulness to our Honorable Chancellor Ma'am, Dr. Maria Zina Johnson, and our President Sir, Dr. Mary Johnson, for their constant guidance, support, and encouragement in all our activities. I also welcome our respected Director Research Ma'am, Dr. B. Sheila Rani, Honorable Guest Dr. Shyam Salim Sir, Dr. E. Vivekananda Sir, respected Advisor of Satyabama University TVA Sheshadri Sir, and our Center Head Dr. D. Inbakandan Sir. So moving on to the technical session, today we have with us Dr. Shyam Salim Sir. So Dr. Shyam Salim Sir, Principal Scientist, Socio-Economic Evaluation and Technology Transfer, Division, Kochi, has over 20 years of research and development on marine fisheries economics, domestic marketing and international trade, climate change impacts of fisheries and fishers, socio-economic and livelihood policy research and management, collaborating and expanding networks within and outside the institute for supporting and implementing country-level fisheries management and fishers welfare action and initiatives, adaptive survey design, tool development and implementation, data analysis, progress reporting, report writing, presentations, project control, represent CMFRI in various forums internally and externally, and support resource mobilization. Initiated meaningful consultation and substantial efforts in attracting external funds through collaborative research and development projects with the FAU, Bellman Forum, AISRF, IIFET, CSIRO, and MSU. Substantial efforts and accolades in empowering women and stakeholder benefits. He developed the Indian Fish Market Grid for better marketing efficiency, methodological tool for assessing the vulnerability of coastal household consequent to climate change, and commendable efforts in empowering the stakeholders. Present work of importance includes developing climate resilient adaptation and mitigation plan, economic efficiency assessment, value chain interventions, and deducing demand and supply relationship and fish empowerment with special emphasis on women. He completed over 50 national and international projects well supported by more than 300 publications. I welcome you, sir. Now the session is over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the organizers. Thanks for the good words, the moderator, Dr. Inbakandan. And I'm seeing many people, but I don't remember the names. But thank you, Ellarkum Male Vanakangal. Thank you for this great opportunity. But I have to tell you very personally that if not for Dr. Vivekanandan, I wouldn't have known climate change. So he had been the person who introduced me to climate change, and with his guidance, I always started working on climate change. And we reached a stage where we could go to FAO together, and that shows the kind of teaching which he had given. And I dedicate this to him because if not him, probably I wouldn't have come and met you all. Having said that, it's an evening, 6 o'clock, it's a tea time. I know you might be tired after office hours, but then I'll try to wrap it up within the stipulated time of 1 hour. Thank you, people. Today I'll be talking about the different approaches towards reducing economic cost of climate change adaptation mitigation. I'm not going into the bookish knowledge of it. Instead, I'm going to share my experiences working in climate change for the last 10 years. So, with a small introduction, climate change, biggest global challenge. எல்லாரும் ரொம்ப அதிர்ச்சியோட பார்த்துட்டே இருக்காங்க American election. See, climate change is worried about Trump also. Trump has taken away US from the Paris Accord. So if climate change is to have climate change fund is to happen, then probably climate change also feel that Trump should lose. But fortunately, things are not going the way as the news we saw. And it's a global challenge facing mankind. Now, earlier we used to speak about vulnerability, but even now we talk about resilience actually. So it has impacted the marine fisheries to a large extent. The sea level rise, extreme events, you talk about the fire and the Oki, the different floods. It has caused changes in habitat, catch and revenue. Initially, it was thought that climate change is going to be good for the small pelagics, but now it's been found that climate change has resulted in range and distribution shift, leading to a species A, which has got a commercial value in a place B, is found in C, where it is being used for non-fisheries purposes. And also there has been huge uncertainties in the livelihoods in terms of uncertainties and risk. So it's important to manage. That's why you talk about adaptation mitigation. That's what I'm called for. It's going to be complex and difficult. It's going to take time. It is going to be the felt needs of the people, and it's going to be multidimensional. So it becomes more and more complicated. So I just put a picture about the coastal environment and vulnerability across India. You could find that the population density is around 500 people per kilometer, which is 1.5 times that of the normal places. So in general, because of trade, there is a huge tendency for the people to live in around coastal areas. Thereby, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Kekada?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, that's okay. So in general, the population density is 1.5 times more than non-coastal.
Somebody is disturbing. So 1 minute, so some disturbance is there. Mute the people who are disturbing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
okay, sir. Sure, sir.
Sorry, sir. Sorry for
Vivek sir is there, huh? Vivek sir is there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. He is there, sir.
Yeah, I have joined. Vivekanandan has joined.
Sir, I know you, sir. Thank you very
Welcome,
much.
sir. Welcome, sir.
For joining.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's my pleasure.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
So in general, if you see the vulnerability across the India, you could find that the vulnerability levels are quite high. And all these are based upon the initial kind of work which Dr. Vivek sir has initiated while he was in CMFRA. So in general, the impact of climate change in marine fisheries, it's all the greenhouse gases, which has got an impact on the parameters like sea surface temperature, salinity, decrease in pH, rainfall, rise in sea level. Will be having biological impacts in terms of distribution, abundance, species mix of organism, all leading to vulnerability species, rehabilitation, and into different impacts across. So what we have done is we have seen how this is going to be impacted across. So we try to develop an ecological, direct and socioeconomic impact of climate change in fisheries as per the FAO format. And we understand that the socio-ecological systems are going to be hugely affected with ecological impacts, direct impacts and socioeconomic impact. Maybe across the length of this lecture, what we're trying to do is how we can impute some value for this and how this could be done and what is the cost required for this. So to me, climate change impacts has got three major components. One, it could be affecting the environment in terms of the climate events, SSTs, hydrological changes, sea level rise, erratic monsoon, extreme events. When I talk about the erratic monsoon and extreme events, that's what normally the fishermen perceive climate change as. They don't understand climate change as a science actually, but mostly they understand climate change as, okay, I couldn't go for fishing. The number of fishing days in a year has considerably reduced. Or it could be extreme events because of fire and or other things. I was unable to go for fishing. It has got resulted in damages in terms of asset, mortality and other things. Those could be employment losses or the environment kind of thing. Again, it is affecting the resources actually. Now we find that sardine has come down to a rock bottom. There are many reasons actually. Some people easily find that climate change could be one reason because the range and distribution shift of sardine has changed over the years, and we understand that this could be because of climate change. Mackerel was found for the traditional fishermen. Now it is even being caught in the mechanized sector. So there are threadfin breams which used to breed on another period. Now it has got changed. So there are new species emerging. All these are the effect on the resources actually. Now being an economist, being climate change as a felt need and which needs to be addressed, we understand that climate change is also affecting the resource users. I tell you, it is not the trophic level which is going to be important. It is going to be the kind of fish which lands, which gets a value, which is being traded. So there are differential multiple levels of fish being traded, fish being produced. It gives a huge impetus to the economy. So we talk about the resources also. So if you find the resources not available, then probably people don't have fishing. They need to switch into alternate livelihood options. They won't be having enough income. Then they are resistant to move from a particular place, because the cost of displacement is going to be high. So there are numerous multi-pronged dimensions which are involved in this, all leading to a situation where we find that the cost of climate change is going to be hugely complex. I have indicated some bubbles. There are effectiveness. What is the effectiveness of this particular cost? Is it going to negate? The benefits are going to be more. The efficiency, what is the efficiency of a new operation? What is the changeover cost? What are the losses? what are going to be the health hazards, what are going to be the employment losses, the displacement, what are the relief activities, what is the risk and uncertainties, fishing losses, ALOs, whether it is going to be amenable, carbon emission trade-off, how it is going to affect the Kyoto Protocol, are the value chains going to be important, what are the exigencies which has happened because of climate change, what is the future livelihood in terms of training, awareness, and identifying new potential, training, what is the policy, there is a social cost, awareness, all these are different gamuts of costs of climate change which are going to happen, which makes it more complex. And also you're speaking of climate change, which has not been distinct in terms of revenue losses to the community as well as the people. So the government of India, or for that matter, any exchequer will be interested to know, like, what are the losses we do? So we have also estimated many kind of losses. We did the cyclone Gaja loss, we did for the Kerala flood, the tsunami. All these things would run into millions, and they use different proxies to analyze all those things. But in general, for climate change, for the Stern report and many international reports of FAO indicate that the cost to mitigate, the cost to adopt, and the cost of future damages are estimated to be in and around 5 to 10% of the GDP. So that appears to be so huge. It appears to be a wish list in which we talk about a lot of things actually, but it may not be able to be done. What CMFRA under climate change in the 1990s, led by Inbakandan sir, rightly now it's being under NICRA, the international project which we got, and we are currently doing is, we have made numerous initiatives in climate change on the fisher livelihood, on the resources and other things. Since the resources point has been already discussed by Inbakandan sir and Dr. Grinson Judge for that matter, I am dwelling upon how climate change is going to be affecting the resources as well as the livelihood. I'll try to fix that, how we are going to assess the impact. So for which, over the last 15, 20 years, I told initially that I'm not going to refer some books and come into what we can do. Instead, we are focusing on what we have done and what is currently in place. So we are doing a reality check what could be done. So we have done NICRA from 1995 onwards. We have been quite fortunate to do NICRA. And after NICRA, we got many projects. And after that, one of the major projects which we got was known as a Gulls project, which was under the Belmont Forum, which was MO, Minister of Earth Science is the facilitating agency. So CMFRA has got, together with the National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management, have been doing some of the Belmont project. And our project during 2014 was mostly on climate change. So we have developed numerous indices, and we try to assess like how the climate change is going to affect the people. And we have developed 4 major parameters, which includes environmental parameters, fishery parameters, social parameters, economic parameters, and development drivers, which indicates the different kind of infrastructure, pollution, and all, how it is going to affect. We clearly felt that the most important parameter which is going to be affected consequent to climate change, which has got a larger impact on the resources and the resource users, is fishery. When I tell fishery, it means that climate change assessment and its impact is mostly going to affect fishery, because the livelihood and the availability of fish stock, dwindling fish stock, all result to a situation where fishery is the most important one. So after 5 or 6 years of studies, we came to a conclusion that climate change is not known as a science to the fisher community. And for each and everything we relate to climate change. And there could be many reasons for fish production coming down. The fisherman is not going to have income, but climate change is one of the most important parameters. And when we found that how we are going to take the fisher community on board, we found that there's a huge resistance for these people to move the present ambience. I'm sure that the Department of Fisheries has constructed a lot of houses under the tsunami relief package. But even in Kerala and some of the places which I know, the fishermen community are not interested to move because they want to live in the same place. And when it comes to the cost of mitigation adaptation, it becomes so huge that the government of India always procrastinates the decision, and the implementation complexities are also quite high. So what we thought was, instead of talking at the national level, can we think of project site-based, using a bottom-up approach? And we started finding that the climate change impacts are going to be global, but the solutions, I mean the adaptation mitigation measures, are to be done locally. So with this, we had this project Gulls. I'm mostly trying to tell out what this project has been and what was the outcome of the project, which served the purpose of this lecture. So In the context of gulls, we use a particular word which is known as the hotspots. It is more or less similar to the biodiversity hotspot. The climate change hotspots, according to the study, has been these are the spots or the areas where the manifestation of the climate change impacts are observed first. So when we tell that we observe hotspot regions, they are the first place where this climate change are being done, then that is going to impact the resources, the resource users, there could be social tensions and all of the things. So we have identified this across the globe. We had places from South Africa, Southern Australia, Western Australia, Mozambique, Southern India, and Brazil. Some of the hotspot regions are indicated there. And this particular areas experience higher warming and social tension as a result of this change. And we worked along all these areas. We had a research team of 14 countries and around 50 scientists from 25 institutes. We have been working and we have been trying to find out some recommendations on how to move about in this particular project. So this project was done during 2014-19, and CMFR also got something like 3.5 crores in running this particular project. So the hotspot region which we have taken for our particular study had been the coastal districts of Trivandrum, especially the southwest region comprising of Ernakulam, Alappuzha, Kollam and Trivandrum, where there is fisheries abundance. And we also found that this could be the region from where the sardine shift has occurred. Also, we have taken Southeast India, where Ramanathapuram and Thoothukudi districts of Tamil Nadu was taken as southeast coast. And this was the vulnerability model which was developed for the Gulls framework, which we made some modifications. And in this framework, we were mostly interested to understand the adaptive capacity, and the adaptation mitigation was of more interest. So we tried to figure out the natural systems, the human systems, the economic systems, the social system, physical system. We were trying to manipulate the different parameters. We tried to develop indices. We tried to develop some resilient indicators, and scores were developed. Accordingly, we developed what is known as an IPCC model, that is E plus S, exposure plus sensitivity minus adaptive capacity, will lead to what is known as vulnerability, or the inverse of that could be what is known as the resilience. So we have the exposure, the sensitivity, where we have different components, the subcomponents and different indicators. Accordingly, we did this for coastal vulnerability assessment done for Southwest Kerala and Tamil Nadu. But for the lecture point of view, I'm restricting myself to Kerala alone. And this was the vulnerability index, where we developed 198 indicators, 36 towards exposure, sensitivity 37, and adaptive capacity, where we thought that that's going to be more important considering the adaptation, mitigation, resilience. So we have around 126 adaptive capacity indicators were there. And all these were used, are mapped using Quantum GIS software. And we found that this is the model which this is the vulnerability assessment matrix which we developed. And accordingly, we find the overall vulnerability, we could see in the overall vulnerability was found to be 2.85 and 2.84, which indicates that these regions has got a very high vulnerability when compared to other regions. So these are some of the snapshots of the overall vulnerability. That's an open quantum GIS format. You could see the different regions, towards the coast. Those are regions, and the color code indicates what is the level of vulnerability. So this is the vulnerability map which superimposes both the exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. I'll go with the individual one. This is overall vulnerability. This is the exposure. This is the sensitivity, and this is the adaptive capacity. So I'm sure that we cannot do much on the exposure thing because that is going to change. That we cannot have any mechanism. There are mitigation measures possible. We may not be able to change. Sensitivity also we not be able to change much because it is already a state of affairs now. So the region where we could do mostly anything related to adaptation mitigation is to improve the adaptive capacity. So while understanding the adaptive capacity, you could see that particular region, the red lines across both the regions, those are around 900 households. Each household is represented across the grid. I am sorry that it is not being indicated there, but that each and every inch represents a household, and the adaptive capacity, the sensitivity, and the exposure of individual households could be measured, and we could go into localized treatment of what is to be done. For example, if myself, Vivekananda sir, in Inbakandan are going to stay in that particular locality, we find that Vivekananda sir is an age-old fisherman, so he may not be able to adapt to new ALO options. So in that case, we will use him for the ITK. So the ITK is going to improve the adaptive capacity of the particular region. Inbakandan has got a PhD, so he could go and give some tuitions. and I'm good in cage culture. So these are the ways in which individual households can be empowered. That's what we meant by this. And accordingly, we identified that climate change adaptation mitigations, there could be different measures actually. For a scholastic point of view, I tried to define adaptation mitigation. Adaptation is basically reducing the impact of climate change, whereas mitigation is tackling the causes of climate change. So there are different measures. If you go, it is like the climate indigenous knowledge, new air laws, and upgrading knowledge and skill, restoration of natural resources, technology, deforestation, all these things comes under adaptation mitigation. Mitigation is more difficult because we are actually trying to identify the causes. So where green technologies, climate literacy, all these things could be practiced. Why do we want to do this actually? Now, why are we going from the village level to the national level? Why can't we go in from the national to the lower level? I'm talking about the top-down or the bottom-up approach. In top-down approach, it is mostly center-oriented, whereas the national government will decide for the plan, the different programs, the policies it comes. It is going to take time. It doesn't take into real count data what is happening. And on the other side, the bottom-up approach is going to be more proactive approach with more people, the immediate stakeholders, the felt people are going to be involved. But when it comes to climate change, we thought that it's not going to work out well if it is going to be top-down or bottom approach. So what we thought was, it is going to be a balancing of result approach, which takes into account both the benefits of top-down and bottom-up approach. So there are people at the local level, the stakeholders have been coalesce, and they try to find out some solutions. And these solutions are taken to the local self-government. They will take to the state government and to the state and to the central government, so that there is frequent interactions between the center as well as the local level leaders. So things become much more important. So in the process, we try to develop a model which is known as the revamp. I'm sure that people understand and appreciate that the most important factor for the development is going to be the villages. Likewise, we thought that the climate resilience should start from the village level. That is, we call a climate resilient village adaptation mitigation plan. So we advocated to the study areas that each and every panchayat, for each and every ward, with the support of the local self-governments, the different NGOs, the different think tanks, the different kinds of group, the regions to the community group, the demographic group, everything will need to sit together. And we were supporting in developing what is known as a revamp or the climate resilient village adaptation mitigation plan. Now, this particular plan has got 4 elements, which includes the awareness, preparedness, adaptation, mitigation, and it goes into different approaches. And some of the salient outcomes which we could think of would be the village climate information system. That is, they provide a real-time data. So the kind of data, the tsunami, the PFSL, the early information systems are being available to the public. There could be climate communities, like it could be in schools, it could be among the youth, it could be the women, green fishing targeting, so that we'll be having better prices for the fishes which are going to be caught at a lower carbon emission. So when you talk about an organic product, the organic product doesn't use much of carbon emissions are less. Likewise, we plan to have what is known as the LC approach, wherein what is the total amount of carbon dioxide emitted in the process of having fish caught at different sector, the traditional mechanized and the motorized sector. And we found that the traditional sector is going to be more incentive oriented, as it emits lower carbon emissions when compared to other plants. So in the process, we'll be developing what is known as an adaptation mitigation plan, all with the support of the government, the society, and the individuals in having a climate change informed fishers and resilient fisheries. So when we're trying to find out who are the people who are going to help us in this particular venture, now we thought that we identified 4 different kinds of resilient agents. One could be the experienced fishers. When I talk about a particular village, coastal village, I presume that there are more fishing oriented families than the other. The census of 2016 of CMFRI indicates that the number of households in the locality, more than 70 to 80% of the people who stay in a coastal village are mostly into fisheries or fisher-related activities. So we wanted to rope in the experienced fishers. Since the fisherman income is seasonal, and the kind of taboos towards savings and the kind of spending behavior they have, and the time when they use that the loans are being not repaid, the kind of non-institutional credits which happen, and NPAs, we thought that there should be an alternative system where the women should be empowered. The classic example could be the self-help groups of women operating in the Thresiapuram, etc. In Thoothukudi. Likewise, we have got a committed women, which is under the belt of Society for Essence Fisherwomen. The youth is going to be important, and also there are children who need to be climate literate. For that matter, we wanted to involve this across the different schools in terms of awareness and training programs. So we did this revamp in different phases across the study areas. We identified the hotspots. We had engaged with the Department of Fisheries, the local self-government. We did baseline surveys. We developed reports, awareness workshop, and engagement of the people. We formed climate information kiosks across the different village panchayat office. And then we formed climate change communities involving women, children, youth, and experienced fishers. And we started developing the adaptation mitigation plan with the Delphi technique of meeting the people in the panchayat across the different groups in finding out what could be the best way of developing a plan. And this particular plan will be submitted to the government so that the government take a cue of what is to be done and impart some kind of budgetary allocations in developing the climate disaster management plan or so. So some of the strategies for climate change adaptation mitigation, I thought, which could be important, which has got a cost, includes the fisher diversity. This is a table which we developed. One, it could be a strategy. And we have also seen whether it is an adaptation mitigation, what is the scale of operation, and what are the stakeholders involved, and also what is the funding agency for this kind of thing. All these are going to be done in a PPCP approach, public-private community partnership, where the community will be involved as the beneficiary, the private could be involved as a CSR, and the public organizations like, for example, CMFRI, your research organizations, and some of the line departments will be facilitating the process accordingly. We have around 20 different strategies. I'll go with some of them. When I talk about the fisheries diversification, probably I'm talking about the cage culture or capture-based aquaculture, which could act as a substitute. There could be other alternative livelihood options, the value addition. I could take indigenous knowledges from the fishermen community, which could be used. The climate information system with the help of INCOIS and IMD and many other organizations could be made available. Entrepreneurship development with the support, we'll be able to have women and all getting some kind of empowerment, additional information and income. The training and awareness, the policy plans are being developed. Afforestation is going to act as a huge carbon sink. Community mobilization, ensuring that the public is taken into account. The green technology, as I told you, that more and more fish which is being caught in the traditional sector are going to gain more incentive in terms of revenue compared to the fishes which are being caught in the mechanized and motorized sector. And also practicing energy efficiency in terms of having different individuals who are trying to rope in. The carpooling could be one. The carbon pricing, reducing fuel subsidies, value chain or market wherein the fisherman gets better price for the products he has. He needn't resort to the different marketing middlemen, which is currently being implemented under the NFDB project, e-market information system, which I'll come later, value chain or marketing, developing leadership traits so that climate communication is known to people. Occupational mobility could be considered, developing climate microgroups, developing linkages, climate literacy, and climate communication tools in terms of the different tools which are developed. I'll be showing in the later stages. So these are some of the strategies which could be done at the local level with the support of the local self-governments and the affected stakeholders, and it could be incorporated in the village administration, village adaptation mitigation plan, and which will have a budgetary allocation of the government of Kerala or the particular state or the government of India, which will find a place so that adaptation mitigation is being considered and being implemented at the grassroots level. So when we did some studies, we are also says what are the preferred alternative options across. We found that these are the different options which are available to the fishermen community. Mostly they were men for the survey which we did, but when we have many other 10 to 15 options more available for the fisher groups. And this is carbon trading incentive for the future, for which we talk about the green fishing, the green tax, and the certified emission reduction. So which was based on a study which we did. That is, for every 1 kilogram of fish being produced in the traditional sector, it emits carbon to 0.11, 1.46, and 2.24. Even these standards are not is truly comparable with the international standards. So carbon emissions, even though climate change is going to be a dissuading factor, the carbon emissions in the traditional motorized sectors are quite low So I pursue that in the future, when there are fish prices going to be determined by the carbon credits, then probably our traditional motorized and mechanized sector are not far behind any of the other countries. And one of the major things being in economics which we did was to find out a fish market grid. A fish marketing is a very cumbersome process. You should be surprised to know that for the sardine and other things, only 40 rupees of when a consumer pays 100 rupees, only 40 rupees reaches the fisherman. Whereas in the case of shrimp, it could be as high as 80 rupees of the consumer's share reaches the fisherman. But in general, people are not aware about the fish markets, the kind of fish which is being traded. So taking a cue on this, we identified and developed what is known as fish market grid of India. This is going to be acting as an adaptive and mitigation measures for the fishermen community, which is in place in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra, and Telangana. And now in the second phase, that's been taken to the northeastern states and some of the central states. So what we try to develop is this the fish market grid. In the fish market grid, when we go and see, you'll find out the different fish markets which are available, and this will be menu driven with a decision support system where we map layer and a query. When a query is being given, it will generate the different outputs of the different markets, and you will be able to identify what are the possible markets where we could sell, we could trade, what is the best prices available. And these are the different ways by which we are trying to help out the fishermen community in terms of adaptation and mitigation options. So these are some of the initiatives we did. I told you that climate literacy was important. So these are some kind of painting awareness competition we did across the schools in the study locations. And we also wanted to have some climate education tools actually, for which we developed the following climate education series: the Knowing Your Planet, Learning and Coping Climate Change, Societal Role, Climate Change and Policy, and also Households in Combating Change. So these are the kind of climate series which we developed and shared across vernacular language. Even if we have in Tamil, in Hindi, and Malayalam, so we have done, so these are being available. So this is how we have done the different linkages with the local self-governments, and currently these are in place. So to sum up, I'll tell that for adaptation mitigation, it is important not to be done at the national level or the global level or at the state level. It is better that since the climate change impacts are global, but then solutions are going to be local, it is good that we make a plan for the different villages, which will add on across the vulnerable districts, so we'll be able to have a better thing in place. So the food for thought for all of us for this lecture is, unless someone likes you care a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Vivekanandan, sir. And so good evening, sir. Sir, you have to unmute yourself, sir.
I have to unmute, huh?
No, sir. No, sir.
I will unmute, sir.
Vivekanandan, sir. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now you can unmute, sir.
No, actually, Vivekanandan, sir, he's.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, sir. I think he's having some.
Yes, sir. He's having some network issues, I think.
Dr. Sheshatri, sir, is there?
Yes, sir.
Sir?
He's there.
I'm here, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Sir, we like to hear some few words from your side, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is a very wonderful comment. Dr. Shyam has captured wonderfully. So this is what we expected. In fact, India has to take it forward. And we need a lot of experiments. Of course, he has given the experiments from Kerala, though he has listed one from Tamil Nadu. So India has to almost the entire 7,000 kilometers coast. We have to show as many examples as possible for us to showcase how this happens. Of course, I just would like to bring in the elements of Dr. Vivekanandan and Dr. Vincent's presentation, how SARCs we use, and especially on using the community as one of the partners in the development. So here, this another possibility. It should be kind of national level program by identifying vulnerable spots, more than vulnerable spots, specific spots in different states, and try to showcase this happening in every ecosystem, I would say. This is what the expectation. I hope they are the big people from CFRI and even SARC and other organizations. I think they are the real people can do. But as Dr. Ginson said, governments are mostly, concentrating more on agriculture than this coastal or aquaculture areas. Government should try to, now that we have a ministry separately dedicated for this activity. Sorry, I have a sore throat problem. That's why I could not speak well. There is a possibility we may get a good funding also for this kind of activities, especially happening and showcasing in the rural areas. I'm sure a lot of things can come. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Vivekanandan sir is there.
Yes, sir. He is there, sir.
Please unmute him.
He is there. I could see his video. Maybe his audio is muted or has some mic problem.
I have unmuted sir, but
Is it seen? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
yeah. Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
No, internet has some problem.
Yes, sir. Network issues.
Yeah.
No, there is a
Hello.
network.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Can I? Hello.
Sir, hope you have some network issues, it seems, sir. We are unable to hear you properly.
Yeah. Now, but Shyam is not online.
Yeah, he's here, sir. Shyam, sir, you can.
Yeah, I'm there, sir. I'm just kept it mute so that others can speak.
You're not able to hear Shyam? Hello.
And now it is fine, sir. Now your audio is also fine. Dr. Shyam is also in line.
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Inba, actually,
I think he's having more.
Sarude voice is varliye.
Yes, sir. Maybe he's having some network issues, sir.
No
Sir,
problem.
Vivekanandan sir, நீங்க கேமரா ஆஃப் பண்ணிட்டு வெறும் ஆடியோ மட்டும் பாருங்க சார்.
I'll call him.
Close
Hello.
the video and you can speak, sir. We can listen to you. Yes, sir.
I think there is some connectivity problem is there, I think.
Now it's fine,
Now
sir.
we can hear you, sir.
No?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You are not hearing my voice?
Yes,
Now
sir.
we
We
can
are
hear you,
hearing you, sir.
Okay. Now is it okay?
Yes, sir. Is it fine,
Hello?
sir?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir, video off பண்ணிட்டு
Yeah, I have.
வாய்ஸ் மட்டும் போதும் சார், வாய்ஸ் மட்டும் போதும். வாய்ஸ் கேக்குது, நோ ப்ராப்ளம். வாய்ஸ் கேக்குது. ஓகே. ஓகே. சாரா சொல்றாருன்னா டிஸ்கனெக்ட் ஆகுதுன்னு சொல்றாரு.
Yes, sir.
I talked to him.
Yes, sir. In between, sir, actually, I have some queries, sir. I tell you, sir is coming.
நீங்க கேளுங்க முதல்ல, அவர் வரட்டும்.
Now he is online, sir. I think he is speaking. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think there is some connectivity problem
Sir, you can remove your mic and you can try once, sir.
for me. Okay. Shyam, thank you. Hello.
Hello, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What I suggest is you ask your question, sir. Connected to
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello, Ketula.
Yes, sir. கேக்குது sir. 1 minute, sir. I will call you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, நீங்க என்னோட மொபைல்ல பேசுங்க.
One Ganapati is okay.
Mr. Ganapati Selvam, please mute
I
yourself.
have muted, sir. Muted, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Shyam, thank you very much for the very nice presentation. I think you have very clearly brought out the point that the grassroots level or the local level is very important for adapting and mitigating the climate change. So that is, I think, one of the take-home message from your presentation. I would just like to know from your presentation, it is very clear that the cost of adaptation is going to be very huge. I think it's going to be very high, the cost of adaptation. So do you think that by spending that much amount, we will be able to get benefit by spending that much amount? What is your opinion on that?
Sir, Shyam sir, kindly unmute yourself. Yes, sir, please.
So when you talk at a global level, national level, that cost is going to be very huge actually. But if you're going to work at the grassroots level, probably the cost is going to have a huge cutting, because we are finding those vulnerable households. We have identified, so you might be aware that we have identified vulnerable coastal districts. We have identified in the vulnerable coastal districts, we know based upon demography, infrastructure, fishery, we have again developed different indices based on which we identify the vulnerable households actually. So you cannot improve anything on the exposure and sensitivity, but we can only improve the adaptive capacity. So basically, whether you are going to improve the financial capital, the social capital, economic capital, in terms of ALOs, all these are going to help the community in total to uplift themselves, sir. It's going to be easier when compared to having a national level program. My experience is working with some of the fishermen community in Kerala over the last years. Some of the families were not having enough income, but now because of initiatives from the government in terms of small micro level groups and ALOs, because of which their empowerment levels have improved. When a family is going to be financially empowered, then naturally their resistance towards climate change vulnerability is also going to be higher, sir. I'm quite optimistic on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No, I think that Ganapati, he want to interact with the Shyam sir. Is it he's here there?
Yes, sir. He is here, sir.
Yeah, let him interact with sir, and then I will talk to sir. Okay, if he's not there, sir. Actually, Sam sir, I have one question, sir.
Please.
In the Gulf program for that adaptive capacity strategy, sir, what are the variables you have taken to measure those things?
I think I'll share that PPT with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll share that PPT with you, no problem. You see that if they require, we'll get back on the same.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, no
sir.
problem.
Okay,
Right now I'll send it. Okay, no problem.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir. Any other questions from the participants? You want to interact with sir?
Kindly raise your hand if you have any queries. I will unmute you.
I think no questions, it seems.
One query is there, sir. R.K.
Yeah.
Sarangi. Yeah, I will unmute her. R.K. Sarangi, you can unmute and you can ask your query.
Okay.
They
I
have
think
said in the chat, yes, but they are not unmuting
no,
themselves.
no
That's
problem.
okay.
No problem. No
That's
problem. If sir, thanks for the wonderful presentation, sir. We can now we can close this program with the end note as Vivekanandan sir said like that. The adaptive measurements for the finance for the adaptive measurements and all, even though it is very high, the mitigation measurements, whatever we are going to put from those mitigation measurements, that will be very helpful for them. And as you said, those variables you're going to, because one of the participant, he asked me that question. You want to know the variable or whatever you use for the adaptation capacity. As you said, you are going to share the PowerPoint presentation. You share with the participants. I think Sarangi, he unmuted himself. Whether he want to talk to us, sir?
Ganapati Selvam has also came now, sir. Joined now.
In 5
Okay.
minutes, I'm in a meeting.
Yeah.
Just going to finish it. Okay, I'm just going to finish a meeting. I'm in a webinar. I'll just come in 5 minutes.
R.K. Sarangi.
Yeah,
please.
yeah. Hello.
Yes,
Good
yes,
evening
sir.
to all.
Yeah.
Good evening to all participants. Good evening to presenter Dr. Shyam. Myself, scientist at ISRO Ahmedabad SAC Space Application Center. We work mostly on PFZ, then ocean color related activities, and then ocean applications and productivity and various means satellite monitoring means applications. So basically, this fishery we are means having some project, and even CMFRI we had some initially means earlier we had some project, and recently we did some Samudra project. I have query regarding this coastal vulnerability aspects. So whether these fishermen are aware all these type of disasters and how it is affecting to the coastal region and how it affects their livelihood, sustainability and economy. So whether in time to time any kind of awareness program and this informative means programs being conducted and being interacted and informed to participation, fishermen participation is held like that or not? Any such kind of activities is means happening arranged or not properly? So can you please enlighten on this?
My association, I think CMFR has got a long association with the fishermen community. And my
Yeah.
association for the past decade indicates that we were quite puzzled when we came and went and talked to climate change to the fishermen as a science. They were not
Yeah.
having much awareness about climate change. To them, it was a loss in fishing days. In Tamil
Yeah.
Nadu, the number of fishing days reduced from 180 to 120 because of fire and other gaja and other things.
Yeah.
So they understood that climate change is mostly affecting them in terms of loss in fishing days or erratic monsoon. So the
Okay.
fishermen are not bothered with climate change, but they are bothered about the fishing day, their income, the fish harvest or so. And also, CMFR is not the only organization related to climate change. I think IMD, INCOIS, and they've got larger roles to play. And related to the exposure and sensitivity, CMFRI hasn't done much in the initial last 10 years, but the PFZ warnings, tsunami alert system, storm spurge, all those things, wave, all these kind of informations are frequently provided by INCOIS. Why I take the name of INCOIS is because I'm currently doing a project on INCOIS related to the impact of the different services. So I was in touch with the people, and especially for the states like Tamil Nadu and Andhra, the impact of INCOIS is so huge in terms of providing early warning alert system, tsunami, PFZ, and also it's there. Now also we have changed the focus now. The focus is not CMFR communicating to the public. We understand that a lot of IT case, because of IT case, the climate change wasn't felt much among the fishermen community. So the climate change continues to be mostly among the academicians and the scientists. slowly it is creeping into the life of the fishermen. So slowly they're understanding it. I'll tell a small joke like I was talking, sir, are you aware about fishermen? I told, no. So what is your current bill earlier and current bill now? So tell that current bill, இப்போ நான் நிறைய ஃபேன் போட ஆரம்பிச்சாச்சுப்பா முன்னாடி இவ்வளவு வேர்வை இல்லை இப்போ நிறைய வேர்வை இருக்கு. So that is one proxy to them. So I'm sure that they're understanding it, but we have got a long way to go in educating them.
Yeah, right. So this is the requirement, means the need of the hour, so that they should also take responsibility, and even to the during these disastrous conditions like cyclones, storms, and tsunami, and all these warning systems, they should be aware and take necessary mitigation steps. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Dr. Sam.
Yes,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure.
Anu, any other questions are there, or shall we wind up the program?
No more queries, sir. We can wind up.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the wonderful presentation, sir. Anu, please give the.
Yes, sir. So participants, regarding tomorrow's session, the topic is Sea Level Rise and Climate Change by Dr. A. Salim Khan, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. So kindly join the session at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, sir. Thank you, Sheshadri, sir, and thank you, Vivekanandan, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anu. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Inba.
Yes, sir.
Inba, I have sent the PPT, okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
You can check and get back.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
He's one of the professors. He's one of my teachers. He taught us entomology.